Hello, welcome to Lesson 11 on the role of women in agriculture. Today we'll see what the roles of women in agriculture are and what are the differences around the world. The aim is to understand the current situation and how to move forward. Are you ready? Let's get started. So, what do you know about the role of women in agriculture? Have you ever thought about it? Let's start from this report, talking about developing countries. The report was published by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in 2011, and it analyzed the role of women in agriculture and the rural economy in developing countries. The authors used statistical data and time-use surveys to examine the extent to which and in what activities women participate in agricultural sector. They noticed that women constitute about 43% of the global agricultural workforce, with significant regional and national variations. The text confirms their total workload, including unpaid domestic work, exceeds that of men. Also, it examines gender inequalities in rural labor markets, where women are often overrepresented in seasonal or part-time jobs and receive lower pay. Let's look at some recent data now. This graph shows the percentage of male versus female employment in the agricultural sector around the world. Countries above the diagonal line, such as Ethiopia, China, and Brazil, have a higher percentage of male agricultural workers. On the contrary, countries below the diagonal line, such as Turkey, India, and Mozambique, have more women than men employed in agriculture. We can see that, like in the report by FAO, there are still significant regional and national variations. Let's now have a look at this figure. Here you can see the share of agricultural landowners who are female in different countries around the globe. You can see that there are no countries where this share is higher than 35%. And in most countries, this share is much lower than 35%. Let's now have a closer look on Europe. In most European countries, the agricultural sector is dominated by men. Only a minority of landowners are female. As you can see in this other graph, European farm managers are typically male and relatively old. So farm managers are typically old men. However, also in this case, we can say that there are some regional differences. The gender imbalance among farmers is particularly strong in the Netherlands. Only 1 in every 20 farmers was female in 2020. This corresponds to about 5.6%. Female farmers were also uncommon in Malta, Germany, Denmark, and Ireland. In each of these countries, female farmers are less than 12%. Instead, in Latvia and Lithuania, about 50% of farmers are female, so there is gender balance. Women in rural areas have to face additional challenges. This is a declaration released from Dr. Maura Farrell, Associate Professor at the University of Galway in Ireland, who runs FLIARA, an EU-funded project to promote women's role in farming. According to Dr. Farrell, women living in rural areas across the EU face additional challenges to their urban counterparts, when attempting to establish a new business or innovative initiative. For a start, they have to deal with the lack of basic services and facilities generally available in urban areas, such as childcare, a strong public transport network, and a reliable broadband connection. There is also more limited access to training and education. In addition, access to financing for establishing a business within a rural context can be very difficult, with many financial institutions reluctant to fund women in business. However, the future looks different. In Europe's rural areas, something is changing. Women are increasingly getting more involved in managerial roles in farming and the development of innovative rural business. So in the graph you can see that the share of farm managers who are women increased from about 26% in 2005 to over 31% in 2020. Again, Dr. Maura Farrell released this statement about the way to move forward. Since 2023, for the first time in history of the EU, its Common Agricultural Policy Strategy refers explicitly to gender equality and the need to increase the participation of women in farming and rural life. Although only two countries, Ireland and Spain, have so far proposed direct measures to support women in farming, several other European countries have included broader rural development policies that encourage greater participation of women. Women tend to have a stronger awareness of environmental issues and are increasingly viewed as important drivers of sustainable farming practices. Additionally, their natural creativity and problem-solving abilities mean that they excel in diversification. They are often key players in agritourism, craft industries, and artisan food production, and demonstrate strong entrepreneurial and business skills. So we can say that women can really bring added value to agricultural systems and rural societies. Changing rural society needs this kind of innovation to overcome the potential challenges ahead. In conclusion, women play a key role in the implementation of multifunctional agriculture in Europe. We need to encourage greater acceptance of and support for rural women as entrepreneurs and businesswomen. We could also do with greater, more targeted support for women attempting to establishing a business, such as easier access to training and financial assistance. Before concluding this lesson, I have a few questions for you. I will read them to you one by one. You can pause the video, think about the answer, and then move on to see the answers. So let's get started. What percentage of the global agricultural workforce is made up of women? What is women's overall agricultural workload compared to men's? How are women positioned in rural labor markets? What is the general gender situation in the European agriculture sector? Which EU countries have particularly low percentages of female farmers? What challenges do rural women in the EU face when trying to start a business? How has the share of women farm managers changed between 2005 and 2020? What is significant about the EU's Common Agricultural Policy since 2023? And why are women considered important for multifunctional agriculture in Europe? Once you're ready, we can move on to the answers. Okay, now let's have a look at the answers. What percentage of the global agricultural workforce is made up of women? It's about 43%. What is women agricultural workload compared to men's? It's higher. It exceeds that of men, including unpaid domestic work. How are women positioned in rural labor markets? They are often concentrated in seasonal or part-time jobs and tend to receive lower pay. Then, what is the general gender situation in Europe regarding the agricultural sector? This sector is dominated by men, with female landowners and female farm managers being a minority. Which European countries have particularly low percentage of female farmers? They are the Netherlands, Malta, Germany, Denmark, and Ireland. What challenges do rural women in the EU face when trying to start a business? They face a lack of services like childcare and transport, limited training opportunities, and difficulty accessing finance. How has the share of women farm managers changed in the last 20 years, let's say, from 2005 to 2020? It increased from about 26% to over 31%. What is significant about European Common Agricultural Policy since 2023? For the first time, it explicitly refers to gender equality and increasing women's participation in farming and rural life. And then the last one, why are women considered important for multifunctional agriculture? Because they are generally strong in sustainability awareness, creativity, problem solving, diversification, and entrepreneurship, making them key drivers of innovative rural development. This is it for now. Thank you for listening to this lesson and keep learning. Do not miss the next lessons to continue discovering the many aspects of multifunctionality in agriculture. There is still much to learn and you certainly don't want to miss this opportunity.